Isaiah proclaims, "With joy you will draw water from the well of salvation." As I read these words, I thought, well, what do I know about wells? Drawing water is easy for us as it is tapped into our homes, and all we have to do is lift or turn a handle. The drawing of daily water is often done mindlessly, habitually, and we forget what a blessing clean, convenient water truly is. The hardest that I've ever had to work for water is when I'm camping or riding the Cal Haven and must pump it from that well. And after a bit, you might think to yourself, is it ever going to come? Is it ever going to happen? And then, whoosh, it does. It always takes just a little bit of effort. But then, when that sudden burst happens, filling the container and often overflowing, yes, there is joy on a hot day, bringing relief and restoration for a parched body. As I pondered wells, I thought of an old cistern from long ago. Now, many of you know that I spent many years growing up in this congregation, as my father was the campus minister at Western Michigan University. And even way back in those days, we would send youth to the Appalachian Mountains on the Appalachian Service Project. We've participated in ASP for over 40 years. That's actually exactly. That's a beautiful record for a congregation. And it began long before my days as a youth and even as a pastor leading service trips. One year, I was on a crew with several of my besties, including Sue Ellen Christian and David Rose. We were serving a family that lived way down a holler, and it seemed very, very isolated. They had twin girls, Hilda and Wilda, and a son, Cleophas, all early teens, just like us. They had a large cistern that was attached to the back of their house. It was about 6 feet wide and maybe 8 feet deep, and it was clogged. This was a problem because this was their main water source, and it wasn't working properly. David Rose was a small, scrappy kid. He was, some of you may remember, he was the son of Joan and Hank Rose. David was your stereotypical redhead. Yeah, if there was adventure, David was in. If there was mischief, David was in. So now I want to, and sometimes even if something bordered along the dangerous, David was in. So now before I tell you this story, if you are a parent who sends kids on ASP, I don't want to get you worried, okay? Because this was a little while ago, and ASP has actually been working on their safety standards for a long time. They have been, right, Doug Vernon? So they make crews now learn the 3 S's, and they make the crews memorize that. That's safety, sensitivity, and stewardship. But back in the day, we were determined that we were going to get that cistern unplugged for this family. And guess what? David was in more ways than one. So we did what any ASP crew would do, right? David was dangled by his ankles into the cistern. Why not? It actually did work. David was held there for what seemed like a really long time. But he did manage to remove all of the debris. And my brother and his friend were the ones holding onto his ankles. And they persevered. They did not drop him on his head, as Isaiah prophesied. Oh, on that day, you will give thanks to the Lord and call on his name. In Isaiah 12, the day being referred to is often understood as a day of deliverance, salvation, and restoration. This passage is a part of a larger context in the book of Isaiah, which includes prophecies about the coming of the Messiah and the hope for the people of Israel, especially in the face of their struggles and exile. Specifically, Isaiah 12 speaks of a future time when God's people will experience joy and gratitude for their salvation. On that day, emphasizes the celebration of God's actions in delivering God's people, of promises being fulfilled through Christ. Overall, day signifies a moment of profound transformation, marking a new beginning filled with hope, joy, and the assurance of God's love and care. And yet, there's still that question. What do wells mean to us today, literally and metaphorically? Wells are a source of nourishment, providing essential water for physical sustenance, and they symbolize a source of spiritual nourishment in our lives. In a world that is often filled with chaos and uncertainty, we can draw from wells of faith, community, and spirituality to refresh our souls. Wells also represent places where we can encounter God. They serve as reminders to seek out spaces, whether in nature, prayer, or community gatherings, where we can experience God's presence and reconnect with our spiritual truth. Historically, wells have been communal gathering places where people come together. Today, they symbolize the importance of community and relationships in our lives. In this age of digital connection, the metaphor of a well encourages us to cultivate genuine, face-to-face interactions and support systems that nourish us collectively. Wells signify places of healing, both physical and emotional. When we encounter challenges and hardships, we can turn to various wells, whether that be spiritual practices, therapy, support, or small groups, to seek renewal and wholeness. Access to clean water is a fundamental human right. And wells can represent the quest for justice and equity in our society. They remind us of the need to advocate for those who lack access to basic resources, calling us to be stewards of creation and ensure that every person has what they need to thrive. In times of drought or hardship, wells symbolize resilience and the hope that sustains us. They remind us that even in difficult seasons, we can find reservoirs of strength and support within ourselves and our communities. Wells can be seen as vital sources of nourishment, connection, healing, and justice. They serve as powerful symbols that invite us to meaningfully engage deeply with our spirituality, our communities, and the commitments to one another. Just as the people of the past and even today turn to wells for sustenance, we too can seek out our own wells of hope, love, and strength. When Isaiah proclaims, "Drink with joy from the wells of salvation," he invites us to draw upon the divine well springs that nourish our spirits. These spiritual wells are the wells of provision, wells of divine encounters, and wells of transformative joy. These wells are not distant or unreachable. They are present in our midst, within each of us and among us. Each time that we gather in worship, engage in conversations, or participate in acts of justice, we tap in to these profound reservoirs of grace, love, and wisdom. We draw from the well of compassion that prompts us to stand in solidarity with those who are marginalized. And we cultivate a spirit of equity and justice that reflects God's own heart. In this community of faith, we recognize that spirituality is deeply relational. We are called to engage in encounters that challenge us, inspire us, and lead us to a deeper understanding of ourselves and one another. Every prayer, every shared meal, every act of kindness fills these wells with compassion and connection. The very act of being present to one another, truly being present to one another, listening, sharing, and uplifting creates a collective well that enriches our community. Isaiah urges to trust and do not be afraid. Trust and do not be afraid. These words remind us that in moments of uncertainty and fear, we can lean in on each other. Our strength lies not only in our individual faith journeys, but also in our commitment to one another. When we embrace our shared humanity, we become a source of strength and hope, embodying God's love and grace in action. You'll remember that in the early days of Christianity, in the Christian movement, the way, followers of Jesus gathered for meals, prayers, and teaching, sharing vulnerable stories about their lives. They created a community where all voices were valued. This is not some newfangled thing. This is way back in the day of Jesus gathering folk in and saying, "You're valued, you're valued, your voice matters." It was a place in Jesus' presence where doubts were welcomed and where love transcended boundaries. This spirit of inclusivity and belonging is essential to our faith today. As we draw upon these deep wells, we encounter the joy that comes with our understanding of salvation, not as a distant promise, but as an active, present reality in our lives. Salvation is not a singular event, but a journey towards wholeness, justice, and reconciliation. It is the joy of realizing that we are all interconnected in the web of life and that our actions matter. Each time we embrace love and action, whether it's through outreach, advocacy, or simple kindness, we contribute to a larger cistern of grace that defines our shared existence. Today, we welcomed new members into our community. We remember the sacredness of baptismal waters, the well of grace. Remember these words that are words of invitation to the liturgy that I shared. Through the sacrament of baptism, we are initiated into Christ's holy church. We are incorporated into God's holy, mighty acts of salvation and given new birth through water and the Spirit. All this is God's gift offered to us without a price. This is a moment of connection, a powerful reminder of our oneness as we immerse ourselves in the well of salvation, allowing it to revitalize our spirits and empower us to work for justice, peace, and love in this world. As we welcome new members into our community, we make a collective promise to embrace and uplift one another. When we respond to our shared calling, we renew our commitment to engage in the ministries of love and justice that embody our faith. This is not merely a formality. It is a living expression of our values and our desire to create spaces where all people are affirmed and embraced. It is as if we have been dunked into a cistern of grace, dangled, but held firm within the salvation of our God and the hands of our neighbors who are in it with us. Now, there's another scrappy individual whom I admired. She's not a redhead, but she's not afraid to speak truth to power. I recently heard Rachel Maddow urging people to join in-person groups to resist the tides of tyranny and injustice. In a similar vein, we must recognize that our church community serves as a powerful counter-narrative to the isolation and fear that often pervade our society. Together, we can stand up for what is right and embody the love and justice of Christ. In this world that often seeks to divide and isolate, let us be the counter-narrative of love, acceptance, and hope. Together, we can resist oppression and injustice as we advocate for the dignity and worth of every person. When we drink from the deep wells of salvation, we quench not only our thirst, but we also become vessels of hope and healing for the world. So, with our new members, let us remember our baptism. Let us come to the water with open hearts, feeling the grace of God upon our foreheads as we resolve to be true disciples who walk in the way that leads to life. Come to the waters, remember your baptism, be thankful, trust, and do not be afraid. Yes, come now.